There are nights so beautiful, so charged with possibility. They feel like borrowed moments from a story that was never meant to be yours. And for Seraphina Carter, tonight was one of them. The grand ballroom of the Lancaster estate shimmered like a living painting, gilded chandeliers casting soft light over a sea of masked faces, silk gowns gliding like ripples across the polished marble floor. Music floated from a quartet on the balcony, the notes slow, seductive, and laced with something dangerous. Seraphina had never belonged in places like this. She knew it the moment she stepped through the doors in an emerald silk gown borrowed from a friend, her eyes veiled behind a delicate gold mask. But for once she didn't care. Tonight, she wasn't the struggling jewelry designer fighting to save her business, or the girl scarred by betrayal. Tonight she was a stranger to her own story. And then she saw him. Across the room, a tall figure dressed in midnight black watched her. His mask was a deep, intricate silver, a predator's face with eyes that glinted beneath it, sharp as a blade and just as lethal. He didn't approach. He simply waited, as if he already knew she would come to him. Seraphina felt a jolt in her stomach, half warning, half thrill. Some men were dangerous by design. Others were dangerous because they made you forget how to protect yourself. This one, she couldn't tell which he was. She told herself to turn away, to find a safe corner and sip champagne like a good, invisible guest. Instead she crossed the floor. "You look like a man with too many secrets," she murmured, stopping before him. "And you," he countered, his voice a low, velvet thing that settled over her skin, "look like a woman dying to hear one." They danced. Not the polite, distant sway expected at such events, but something slower, closer. Her hand on his chest felt the steady thrum of his heart. His touch at her waist was firm, certain, like a promise of something neither of them would speak aloud. They didn't trade names. No history. No intentions. Just flirtatious banter laced with half-truths and smiles that meant too much. "I'm beginning to think you're trouble," she teased. "Darling," he drawled, "trouble's the only thing worth chasing." Time bent around them, the rest of the room blurring into insignificance. And then, as if fate itself conspired, he led her to a balcony, the night air sharp against heated skin. Below, the garden's lanterns flickered like scattered stars. Neither spoke. And when his hand cupped her jaw, tilting her face toward his, Seraphina didn't stop him. The kiss was nothing like it should have been. Not hesitant. Not staged. It was reckless and consuming, like both of them had been starving and only just discovered it. When they broke apart, breathless, he traced a finger down the line of her jaw. "Find me again," he whispered. But when she turned to look back seconds later, the masked stranger had vanished into the night. And so began a story neither of them could escape. Have you ever felt an instant, reckless connection with a stranger? The kind that leaves you breathless? Drop a sparkling heart in the comments if you'd risk it too. And hit subscribe because you won't believe where this story leads. Seraphina Carter had always believed in two kinds of stories, the kind you told and the kind you kept hidden. Most of her life fell into the second category. The morning after the masquerade, sunlight poured through the blinds of her tiny apartment above the boutique she fought tooth and nail to keep alive. Her charm bracelet glinted on the bedside table, one empty slot catching the light like an unspoken promise. But it wasn't the charm that haunted her. It was the stranger's kiss. The phantom touch of his lips, the danger laced in his voice, and those words, "Find me again." She hadn't expected to want to. Work, as always, didn't wait for daydreams. The front room of Celestine Charms smelled of fresh-cut peonies, lavender oil, and cool metal. Customers trickled in, brides-to-be, anniversary husbands, young lovers eager to make grand gestures. Seraphina had built a reputation for crafting pieces that felt personal, alive, and hers. But that day, every stone she set, every clasp she fastened, felt like distraction. Every face that entered wasn't the one she wanted to see. By noon, the distraction turned to dread. Her business manager, Tessa, burst in clutching a letter. "You need to see this." Seraphina skimmed the document, her stomach sinking with every line. An anonymous investor had filed a bid to acquire Celestine Charms, aiming to absorb it into a mass-market chain. The offer was generous, ruthless, a clear attempt to erase everything she'd built. "This has to be a mistake," Seraphina breathed. Tessa shook her head. "They want an answer by Friday." Refusing wasn't a simple matter. The boutique's finances had been tight for months. Suppliers needed payment. The lease was up for renewal. One bad week could collapse everything. But selling meant surrendering her art. Name. And Seraphina Carter didn't surrender. "I want to meet them," she said. Face to face. Elsewhere across the city, Dominic Vale reviewed the acquisition brief, indifferent to the details until his gaze landed on one name: Celestine Charms. He almost ignored it. One boutique among dozens in a portfolio. But something tugged at him. Name. The owner. An image surfaced unbidden. Emerald silk, a delicate gold mask, and the ghost of a midnight kiss. Ridiculous. The city was full of beautiful, dangerous women. He hadn't wasted a thought on one in years. Yet, "Confirm the meeting," Dominic instructed his assistant, his tone unreadable. That evening, a second masquerade unfolded in the glittering chambers of the Rosenthal Hotel. Seraphina hadn't planned to attend another. But Tessa's words echoed. "You never know who you'll meet at these things. Maybe someone who can help. Or hurt." Draped in sapphire satin, a new mask framing her storm-gray eyes, Seraphina walked into the ballroom with one rule: no attachments. Dominic saw her the moment she arrived. He shouldn't have been surprised. Trouble had a way of circling back. This time, he stayed hidden in the crowd, watching as she laughed with strangers and politely declined flirtatious offers. The same fire that had drawn him before was still there, the sharp edges, the impossible softness beneath. He hated how much he noticed. And yet, when another man placed a possessive hand at her lower back, Dominic crossed the floor without thinking. "Mind if I steal her for a dance?" His voice was cool silk, daring the other man to object. Seraphina blinked, thrown. She didn't recognize him without his signature silver mask. This one was darker, sleeker, a predator's silhouette. But the voice, her pulse stuttered. "Bold of you," she said, forcing a smirk. "I haven't decided if you're worth it." Dominic's lips curved. "You'll forgive me eventually." He swept her into a dance without waiting for permission. Their steps were practiced, dangerous. Too close for polite society. Too hungry for caution. "I could swear we've met," she teased. "Would you remember if we had? I remember trouble when I see it. And yet you're still here." The flirtation danced on a knife's edge, neither willing to break the illusion. When the music ended, he let her go, his touch lingering longer than it should. "I hope you find what you're looking for," Dominic murmured. Before she could reply, he vanished into the sea of masks. The next day, Seraphina arrived at the address listed in the acquisition letter. A glass tower of mirrored panels and marble lobbies. The kind of place that smelled of power and made you feel small on purpose. She braced herself as she entered the private conference room. The heavy oak door swung open. And there he was, Dominic Vale. Not in a mask. Not in shadow. Her masked lover. The air crackled as recognition flared in both their eyes. Seraphina's heart slammed against her ribs. Fury warred with shock, with a painful ache of want she hadn't given herself permission to feel. "You," she whispered. Dominic's face betrayed nothing. "Ms. Carter. Please have a seat." Her laugh was sharp and humorless. "You've got to be kidding." Tessa's betrayal stung too. She'd sent Seraphina into this like a lamb to slaughter. "I see you've been keeping secrets," Seraphina bit out. Dominic's gaze was steady. "I didn't know it was you." "Convenient." He should have explained. Told her about the board, the pressure, his reasons. Instead, pride rooted him in silence. "I don't play games with men like you," Seraphina said, rising. His jaw tightened. "You already did." The words hung between them, cutting deep. For a heartbeat, The room held them in a private, combustible world. Then she left. Dominic stood alone in the aftermath. He should have let her storm out. Should have erased the boutique's file from his desk and the woman from his memory. But he couldn't. For the first time in years, the mask felt heavier than the man wearing it. Later that night, Seraphina walked along the waterfront, the city's lights reflecting in the waves like scattered coins. Her charm bracelet jangled softly, reminding her of everything she was trying not to feel. She told herself it was just a kiss. Stranger. Mistake. But it didn't feel like one. And deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The days that followed should have dulled the sharp edge of that conference room encounter. But for Seraphina, every moment without a mask felt suffocating. She threw herself into work, reshaping rings and stringing delicate charms with trembling hands. Yet the image of Dominic Vale's unyielding expression haunted her. A part of her wished she'd never walked into that masquerade. Another part hated how desperately she wanted to see him again. She didn't expect her wish to come true so soon. The next elite charity masquerade arrived with unsettling speed. Word traveled fast in their circles, and both Seraphina and Dominic knew they'd be there. But neither admitted it was for any reason other than appearances. Seraphina arrived in a crimson gown that clung to her curves like a secret, her mask darker this time, black with crimson stones at the corners, a storm behind her gray eyes. Dominic spotted her the moment she stepped inside. He told himself to stay away, that it was safer, smarter, necessary. But his feet betrayed him. By the time their eyes met across the crowded floor, the damage was already done. Running from your business troubles, Ms. Carter? Dominic's voice slid over her like silk and sin. Just like you're running from decency, Mr. Vale. Their words danced as much as their bodies did when he took her hand, pulling her into a waltz far too intimate for the formal space. She didn't resist. She never had. They moved in perfect step, their barbs masking a dangerous tenderness neither dared to name. I thought you didn't play games with men like me, he murmured, his hand warm at the small of her back. Maybe I'm curious how this one ends. Dominic's gaze dropped to her lips, his pulse a steady roar in his ears. You should be careful, he said softly. Some endings aren't happy. Some are worth the risk. Heartbeat. Then another. And just like that, the game was back on. The night spiraled in a haze of flirtation and near confessions. He asked about the charm bracelet on her wrist, his thumb brushing over the empty slot. She deflected with a teasing smile. It's for the one thing I haven't found yet, she said. And what's that? Something real. Dominic didn't answer. Couldn't. Instead, he ordered them both another glass of champagne. But the fantasy cracked when Ava Mercer appeared. Tall, blonde, and venomous, Ava had once been Dominic's greatest mistake. Now, she was a reminder of everything he refused to feel. Seraphina watched as Ava slid up to him, her manicured fingers trailing down his lapel. Well, if it isn't the city's most elusive bachelor, Ava purred. Trading me in for a new pet project. Seraphina bristled. Dominic's jaw tightened. Leave it alone, Ava. Oh, come now, don't be shy. What's this one's name? Or is it another secret you'll regret? The look on Seraphina's face could have shattered glass. Without thinking, she stepped closer, resting a hand on Dominic's chest. She has a name, Seraphina snapped. And she doesn't tolerate petty mean girls in bad heels. Ava's smile faltered. Dominic barely suppressed a laugh. I warned you, Ava. Ava's gaze turned icy. Enjoy him while you can, darling. His loyalty's as shallow as his pockets are deep. She disappeared into the crowd, leaving a trail of tension in her wake. Seraphina started to pull away, but Dominic caught her wrist. His voice was low, rougher than before. Thank you, he said. She tried for flippant. Didn't do it for you. But her pulse betrayed her. Later, on a terrace away from the glittering ballroom, Seraphina stared out at the night sky, the city lights flickering like distant stars. Dominic found her there, a glass of untouched champagne in her hand. "You didn't have to," he began. "I know," she said without turning. A long silence. "I wasn't lying," he confessed. "About not knowing it was you, at the meeting." Her breath caught. "And about calling off the acquisition." She faced him then, searching for the truth in his storm-gray gaze. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Pride. Stupidity. Maybe because I wanted you to hate me. It's easier than the alternative." She hesitated. "And what's that?" "Wanting you." The words left him unguarded, raw. And in them, she heard not the powerful billionaire, but the lonely man behind the mask. "I can't promise you I'm not a mess, Seraphina," he admitted. "But for what it's worth, you make me want to be better." The flirty banter was gone. This was something else. Something dangerous. 'Cause it felt real. And real broke hearts. Seraphina stepped closer, her palm resting over his heart. "I don't need you perfect," she whispered. "I just need you honest." Their lips met like a challenge, soft at first, then desperate. It was a kiss full of mistakes they'd both make again. Full of heat, apology, and reckless hope. When they pulled apart, neither said a word. Because neither could promise what came next. And neither wanted to walk away. Back inside, Tessa's frantic voice found Seraphina. "You need to see this." A rival investor had placed a bid on Celestine Charms, one higher than Dominic's, one that came with rumors of demolition and liquidation. Seraphina's stomach turned. She glanced toward Dominic, across the room, standing alone, unaware. Her heart warred with her pride. He'd called off the deal. But now someone else was ready to tear her world apart. She fled before the night could claim any more of her. The following day, Dominic learned about the rival bid. He hadn't even left the boardroom before calling every contact, threatening to outmaneuver them. But it was too late. The rival offer was accepted pending final paperwork. Seraphina hadn't known. No one had told her. And he couldn't reach her. Until he saw her name on the charity auction list. A small handwritten note attached to one item. "For a love that lasts." It was a charm. A delicate silver heart-shaped locket meant for a bracelet. His stomach dropped. Dominic won the bid without hesitation. He didn't go home that night. Instead, he went to the only place he knew might still hold her. The waterfront. And there, beneath a sky streaked with dawn's first blush, he found her. The air along the waterfront was crisp, scented with salt and the hush of waves against stone. Dawn had just begun to paint the sky in soft shades of rose and silver. And Seraphina, wrapped in a simple coat, camera dangling from one hand, stood where the city's edge met the water. She always came here when her heart was too heavy to carry. And today it felt unbearable. The auction had been a mistake. Donating that charm, a symbol of the love she still wanted to believe in, had felt like setting fire to the last fragile hope she carried. She told herself it didn't matter who bought it. But the moment she left that ballroom, part of her knew. Somehow it would find its way to him. It always had. She was about to turn away when a shadow moved beside her. Dominic. No mask. No tuxedo. Just a man. His collar up against the cold, hair mussed from the wind, and a look in his storm-gray eyes she'd never seen before. Not arrogance. Not control. Vulnerability. "You should be home," she said quietly. "I couldn't." His voice was rough, as if the words scraped his throat. "I should have told you about the acquisition, about pulling out, about everything. I handled it wrong." Seraphina studied him, her gaze steady. "Why?" "I was afraid." He gave a humorless laugh. "I've built empires, negotiated billion-dollar deals. But the idea of being seen by you? Of you knowing what I wanted before I was ready to admit it? It terrified me." A long silence stretched between them, broken only by the water. "I don't need your empire, Dominic," she murmured. "I don't care about your name or your company. I needed someone who wouldn't lie. Who wouldn't hide behind a mask." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small object. The heart-shaped charm. "I bought this for you," he said. Not to win. Not to fix anything. Because it belongs with you. Seraphina's throat tightened. I tried to forget you, he admitted. At the first gala. After the second. After that damn boardroom. Every time you walked away, I told myself it was safer. Easier. And now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Now. Can't. I don't want to. He closed the distance, taking her hand, gently turning her wrist so the charm bracelet lay against his palm. There's a place for this, he said softly, fitting the charm into the empty slot. A place for us. Her heart stuttered. I was never looking for perfect, she confessed. I was looking for real. His fingers brushed her cheek. Then let's stop pretending we're anything else. The kiss that followed wasn't desperate or stolen. It wasn't a mistake. It was a promise. The weeks that followed felt like uncharted territory. For the first time, Dominic didn't hide. No masks, no late-night disappearances. He showed up at the boutique after closing, carrying takeout and questions about her day. He ran his thumb across new designs, asking about the inspiration behind every stone. Seraphina let him in slowly. She told him about her mother, about foster homes, about the loneliness that had shaped her. She told him about Thomas Avery, and how it had nearly broken her. And Dominic told her about Isabella Mercer, about betrayal, about years spent believing love was a liability. In those moments, the raw, unscripted ones, their love took root. But the world didn't stop for two hearts learning to trust. The rival investor's offer still loomed. The deal threatened to close in days. And this time, Dominic couldn't save her without breaking the rules. Seraphina refused to let him buy her way out of it. It's my fight, she told him. And I have to win it my way. But she didn't stop him from standing beside her. At the final masquerade of the season, a midnight gala beneath a canopy of fairy lights and stars, Seraphina's newest collection debuted. It was bold, intimate, and stunning. Every piece told a story of survival and strength. Dominic watched from the sidelines, resisting the urge to tear off his mask and claim her in front of the world. Then came the final piece, a delicate chain with a heart-shaped charm, identical to the one on her wrist. The crowd murmured, cameras flashed, and Seraphina did what no one expected. She stepped to the microphone. For years, she began, voice steady despite the tightness in her chest, I made jewelry to tell other people's love stories. Tonight I'm telling my own. She glanced toward Dominic. I spent too long believing love was weakness, that it was easier to hide behind masks, to settle for illusions. But real love isn't perfect. It's terrifying, messy, reckless. And sometimes it shows up in the last place you expect. The crowd held its breath. And then, breaking every rule of the masquerade, Dominic removed his mask. Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters scrambled. Society's most elusive bachelor had just bared himself in front of the city's elite. He crossed the room unflinching. Seraphina Carter, he said, stopping before her. I can't promise you easy or safe, but I swear no more masks, no more lies. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a slender box. Inside a charm. Not a diamond, not a ring. Tiny silver mask. To remind us where we began, he said. And how far we're willing to go. Seraphina's throat closed. I don't need perfection, she whispered. Just you. The room vanished around them. He kissed her there in front of the world. And this time no one stopped them. The rival investor withdrew days later, unwilling to face the PR storm Dominic threatened to unleash. Seraphina kept Celestine Charms, fully independent, with a waiting list of clients stretching into the next year. Dominic restructured Vale Industries, creating a division to support independent female creators. And not just because of her. Because she showed him it mattered. They traveled, danced at galas without masks, fought over morning coffee, made love in every room of the waterfront penthouse. They healed. Together. Months later, under a pale dawn sky, Seraphina led Dominic to the same pier where their story had begun to shift. She handed him a small box. Inside was a charm, a tiny sunrise. "For the night that ended it all," she said. And when he fastened it to her bracelet, the last empty slot was filled. Some stories aren't meant to stay behind masks. Some hearts, no matter how broken, still find the courage to be seen. For Seraphina and Dominic, what began as a reckless midnight kiss between strangers turned into something neither of them expected. A love forged not in perfection, but in vulnerability. They learned what too many are afraid to admit: that falling in love isn't about finding someone flawless. It's about choosing the one who sees your cracks and loves you anyway. Their nights of hiding behind masquerade masks had ended, but their endless passion, that had only just begun. And as Seraphina's bracelet glinted beneath the rising sun, every charm now in place, every memory sealed in silver, she realized something beautiful. She hadn't needed saving. She only needed someone brave enough to stay. And Dominic Vale, the man the world believed to be untouchable, proved that when you finally let someone see your true heart, that's when the real story begins. So, if you've ever loved someone who terrified you in the best possible way, if you've ever craved a connection that burned brighter because it wasn't easy, then you already know how this story feels. Because some loves are worth chasing. Some hearts are worth unmasking. And some passions truly are endless. Would you risk it, loving someone who made you feel this alive, even if it meant breaking every rule? Tell me in the comments below. Drop a sparkling heart if you'd fight for a love like Seraphina and Dominic's. And if this story left you breathless, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with someone who loves romance as much as you do, and subscribe to Made of Love, because our next story might just steal your heart all over again. Real love isn't found behind perfect masks or polished lies. It's built in the raw, unguarded moments when two scarred souls choose each other anyway.